This video will be for the Amiga games I've played that I'm yet to mention. I've done 2 videos about my top 15 Amiga games plus some honorable mentions, and also ratings for some Amiga arcade ports. This video will be about the other Amiga games I've played. Anyways, I'll jump in. Ultima 6 should have been in the list of my top 15 Amiga games, but I didn't want to have multiple Ultima games in that list. The story picks off with the Avatar having returned back to the real world. Gargoyles from Britannia show up and are about to sacrifice the Avatar when some of his companions show up and rescue him when he returns back to Britannia, where there's a prophecy that the world is going to be destroyed by a war. I won't spoil the story as there's some good plot twists, and this game looks so much better than the previous Ultima games. You can now use a mouse. The world is so detailed, and for an RPG released in 1990, it was one of the best. Don't forget, Final Fantasy's creator and Enix got the inspiration for Final Fantasy and Dragon Warrior from the Ultima series, because you have in the Ultima games a world map, towns to explore, NPCs to interact with. In Ultima 6, just like in the other Ultima games, it's not just about battling enemies. You also need to get the right information to make some quests available or to be able to save the world. As you can see, the battle system is turn-based once again. But like the other Ultima games, in Ultima 6, you'll be doing a lot of quests which aren't the typical travel through a dungeon or to some place, beat a boss and advance the story. You'll need to find items which are needed for the story, and you'll do a lot of non-combat related tasks. Again, I don't want to spoil the story for you, but it's not like in other RPGs where you're just traveling to different places and beating a boss, rinse and repeat to advance the story. The stories in the Ultima games revolve around the virtues. Anyways, when this game was released in 1990, it was one of the best games for its time. To be honest, I love the second Tarracan game because it has the wheel attack, which you're invincible when you can unleash bombs. People say it makes the game too easy and you're overpowered, but the first Tarracan game was too hard for me. This game looks and sounds great and it plays very smoothly. I'm usually not into running gun style games, but this is one of the exceptions. This game is often in people's top 10 Amiga games, and people have even bought the Nintendo Switch re-release of this game. I like how the levels are non-linear. You can actually explore different paths and there's a fair bit of platforming. I also love its sci-fi aesthetic. Looks like something you'll see in sci-fi from the 80s or 90s. The game has some great anime style story scenes, even though the game is made by a German developer. Its story scenes remind me of Phantasy Star. I really enjoyed this game. I first played it when I was 9 years old, but I wasn't intimidated by doing dog fighting in a World War II plane. It was fun and exciting and unpredictable. I remember my guns would jam, and I like the style of story presentation. It's like you're watching a World War, a movie that was made a long time ago. And some gameplay segments you do bombings, just fly overhead and you've got to get the timing right when you release a bomb. I remember having days off from school when I was sick and I would play this game all day. As you can see the cloud details. For more gameplay variety, the game also has these segments where I guess you could call it an isometric view. You're flying above and you're destroying convoys and bases, and it's just fun. I actually watched my cousin play through this game, where I tried to help a bit with the puzzles, and I loved watching him play. It's a point and click puzzle game with beautiful environments. The game takes advantage of the Amiga's capabilities. Amiga was known for colourful graphics, tropical islands, environment, and a great art style on top of this. Some of the scenery in this game is so beautiful, I didn't want the game to end. I just wanted to keep exploring the tropical island. The story and humour for the game are well done. The Amiga version of the game also has superior sound and music to the other versions at the time. The puzzles are also well done as well. This is another game from Psygnosis, who made a number of dark fantasy games for the Amiga that were artistic and had awesome music. The atmosphere and music for this game is incredible, but its gameplay is known for being difficult. You only have one life. I like the other small details, such as defeated enemies will fall off a ledge. The game also has some chilling story scenes. As a 9-year-old, it really gave me the chills when I played this game. You'll see what I mean in a second. I'll let you watch these story segments for yourself. The fellow in this house you're about to see still gives me the chills. I had a lot of fun with this game. Like I said, it's just too difficult for it. So good, but so well presented. The game also has platforming and some sadistic puzzles, where if you do the puzzle wrong one time, you have to restart the game. I think I was 8 or so when I played Star Fox 2. I think it was in 1990. I grew up in a household that watched a lot of sci-fi, such as Star Trek and Babylon 5, and my father got this game for him and me, my brother, to play. It's a space sim, but it's fairly accessible even for younger gamers. You can do the missions in any order you want. It's not like a campaign. Some missions are easier, some missions are harder. Some missions are straight up action. You need to destroy a lot of attacking alien enemy ships, but the simulation side of things, there are some missions which are fairly lengthy. You need to travel through deep regions of space. You can actually use wormholes. And there's a mission, you're searching for an ancient starbase that's believed to exist, and you need to search big regions of space. If I remember correctly, you got like a star map or something included with the game. Like I said, you create wormholes to travel big regions of space quickly. Some missions are escort missions, or you're defending a starbase. Yeah, I had good memories with this game. For me, it was like the Free Space 2 of its time. Swift is another Euro shooter. I wanted to play it more, but I played it at my cousin's house a few times, and I enjoyed it. As you can see, there's 2 players, and one player can use a helicopter, the other uses a ground vehicle. The visuals are nice. I like how Euro shooters go for more realistic style rather than anime. There's nice detail in the landscapes, the rocky terrain and the deserts with the pyramids. There's not much more to say. I enjoyed it, and I've heard it's one of the better shoot-em-ups on the Amiga. I actually got Ultima 4 in 1997 from an independently owned game store that was selling Amiga games dirt cheap. By this point, Ultima 4 was over 10 years old, and the 5th gen consoles had been released for a while, and I did most of my gaming on the Sega Saturn. So the game looked dated at first, but after playing it and experiencing its story, I could understand why the creator of the Ultima series said Ultima 4 is his favourite game. Whereas Ultima 5 and 6 have some very dark themes, Ultima 4 has a very gentle, light-hearted feel. Basically, the aim of the game is to go around showing honour and being polite to people and earn the virtues. You still do all the usual RPG stuff, of course. You explore the world map and visit towns. But its story, it has a light-hearted feel, and to beat the story, it's more about being a good and honourable person, which choosing polite responses during conversations will help you earn the virtues. So this type of thing made the game feel different. It still has nice colourful story scenes, it's just the towns and the world map look a bit dated, because the game was released in 1985. There's combat, of course, and it's turn-based, but like other Ultima games, beating this game is about doing many things that don't involve combat. I played this game in 1992, 1 year before I played the Aladdin game for Mega Drive, so this was a great period for Arabian-themed video games. Yes, I know Persians aren't Arabs, but there's still influences of Arabian culture in the game. This is another game I wish I could have played more of, but once again, I played it on my cousin's Amiga. POP games are described as cinematic platforming games. The platforming in the game is slower and goes for more realism. The animation for this game was stunning for its time. It had realistic, flowing body movements. There's some combat, of course, and puzzles. For its time, it was fun to play and stunning to look at. And if I remember correctly, it has a save feature as well, which made the game less frustrating. I got this game for free from Game Wizards when I purchased Mortal Kombat for the Amiga, and some people like this game, I don't. It's an action platformer puzzle game. The game is full of trial by error. There's a lot of times you'll die and there was no clues to what you had to do. Sometimes you can just jump off a platform and spikes from the wall will kill you, or there'll be enemies that you can't avoid. There'll be dead ends where you have to commit suicide. It's nicely presented. It's presented like a play. It's just not a game for me. Fuzzball is another game I got for free from Game Wizards when I purchased Golden Axe for the Amiga. At first I thought Fuzzball would be similar to a Sonic game because of the box art. It's a puzzle platformer with a bit of shooting. It's colourful, it's got some nice music. It starts off easy enough, but it gets very difficult, and if you fail at a stage, you have to go back to the beginning. And there's 50 levels. You're supposed to shoot for other creature things and collect things, and there's a time limit. You've got to jump around, and the game is actually fun, but it's just very difficult. The game had like a password system that would have been better. The creatures in the later levels become much harder, and there's other harder things to deal with in the later levels. People say I get a bit defensive towards this game. It's because I got it as a Christmas present and I enjoyed it, and I love the Terminator 2 movie, and the original Terminator is one of my favourite movies of all time. Found the game fun, simplistic but fun. There's 3 stages where you take on the T-1000 one-on-one, and there's 2 stages that are chasing segments, and there's a shooting segment outside the Cyberdyne building. It's not a long game, but you only have 1 life, and if you lose it, you've got to go back to the first level. The fighting feels heavy and clunky. Then again, that's how it was in the Terminator movies. But you can cheese through the battles against the T-1000. Just press forward diagonally down on the joystick and the fire button. You'll perform a combo that will 99% of the time take down the T-1000. You'll deplete the T-1000's health quickly. As for the chasing segments, more about memorization. In the shootout outside the Cyberdyne building, you just judge the angles of where the bullet fire is coming through. Only the police officer who's in front of you will be able to shoot you and do damage if you judge the angles correctly. The game also has the nice music from the movie and full motion video scenes from the movie. Metal Mutant is another game that screams 1980s sci-fi, but if I remember correctly, it was released in the early 1990s. It was made by the same developer that made one of my favourite Amiga games named Crystals of Arborea. Look at the murky swamp environment like you see in the 1980s sci-fi movie. In the game, you control a cyborg, I think it is, and you can transform into, well, you can be his normal humanoid shape, and you can also transform into a tank or a T-Rex looking thing. As you'd expect, the different forms have different weapons, different abilities. It's kind of funny, like you can shoot a alien creature thing with your tank and it doesn't kill it, but then you transform into another form and use a melee weapon and you'll kill the alien. It's kind of funny, but at least the game is trying to be different and it's fun. It has atmosphere. It's not a long game, but it's not an easy game because there's no clues as to what weaknesses the enemies have. or what weapons they're vulnerable to. And if you die, you have to restart the level. And I think there's only 3 or 4 levels in the game, but the levels are fairly long and they're not easy. There's long segments where you can die easily. You can die from getting shot one time, and if you die, you have to redo a lengthy section again. It does have atmosphere, I'll say that. I really wanted to like Rick Dangerous because I love platformers, but it's too much like a memory game. There's a lot of blind jumping and trial by error. There are times you must jump down a pit and you can't see where the spikes are, and you could land on them. You don't know until where the spikes are till you jump down the pit. There's also a lot of traps that can easily kill you and you don't have time to react unless you know where the traps are. The game has charm and it controls well enough. I like the idea you have a limited amount of bullets and explosives to take out enemies. So it's got a bit of an Indiana Jones feel. Like I said, the game relies too much on memorization rather than skill for my liking. I was really hoping for this game to be good because I'm a fan of Batman. I have Batman figures, many Batman games. The platforming levels are fun enough. You use the Batarang and the grappler to pull yourself to higher levels and take out enemies. The racing stage with the Batmobile drags on too long, and using the grapple to swing the Batmobile in the direction away from the police. It sounds like a fun type of level in theory, but the controls and the timing are sensitive. There's also a time limit. I only managed to get past the Batmobile stage a few times, but I never got past the Batwing stage, which is similar, but because you have a time limit, you gotta fly around in the Batwing and cut the toxic balloons free. Using the level skip cheat, I got past the Batwing stage and I could beat the final stage with no problems, because the final stage is another platforming stage, and like I said, I like the platforming stages in this game, they're fun. If the Batmobile stage didn't drag on so long and the Batwing stage had been designed better, I probably would have loved this game. I'm not a wrestling fan. In fact, when I lived in America, my American ex-girlfriend and some of her friends who were into wrestling had to drag me kicking and screaming to some wrestling WWF things. But I didn't mind this game. It's got some nice presentation and the fighting was technical enough. I'm not the one who's playing the game in the footage, but the game is on the easy side. You can cheese your way through it. You just climb on the corner post and you just keep jump kicking off it, and you'll just deplete your opponent's health quickly and you can just pin them down and they have no energy left. But that's the boring way to win. There's grapples where if you get very close, you end up in a grappling contest and you got to wiggle the joystick and you build up the meter. Whoever builds up the meter first performs their special move, which takes off a fair bit of energy. Here's the grapple thing now, you got to wiggle the joystick. You can use punches and kicks, and you can bounce off the ring and run. You can go outside the ring and hit the opponent with a chair, but if you're outside the ring for 20 seconds, you automatically lose the match. I had some fun with this game. I think I can objectively say this game is bad. I'm not the only person who couldn't get past the first stage in this game. This game has only 3 stages anyways. The controls are poor, and in the first stage you gotta maneuver down the sewer, and there's ghost hands that will keep cutting your rope, and you'll be swarmed by ghosts at different angles, and it's hard to deal with all of this, and the game isn't clear for what you actually have to do, since you've got to get a slime sample. And even when I got to the bottom of the sewer, which I only managed to do a few times, I didn't even know how to get the slime sample. I played this when I was like 10 years old. With YouTube guides, it looks a lot easier now, but as I said, the game wasn't clear with what you had to do, and I saw the gameplay in the other levels and it looks boring and slow. There's also a lot of disc swapping. This is the final level now, and I had to skip forward a fair bit of it because it's so slow and boring. One of the most boring final levels in an action game ever. I love the movie, and the movie's exciting. The game is slow and boring. I remember playing this game when I was 10, and I didn't know which weapons to select or what I had to do in the missions. My father actually bought this game for himself. Amiga was known for having great jet fighter simulations. I liked watching my father play this game, and like with many other Amiga games, the music for this game is awesome. And even though I didn't play much of this game, I could appreciate how more, I guess you could say, realistic it was than the jet fighter simulations on the Sega Mega Drive. I'm not talking Afterburner, which is an arcade game. I played F117 Night Storm on the Mega Drive, which was a jet fighter simulation. It was nowhere near as good as this game. Not the mission designs, not the music or graphics.
Primary target hit.
With jet fighter sims, when you destroy a target, whether it be another plane or a ground target, it feels more rewarding because it feels like you earned it compared to an arcade shoot 'em up like Afterburner. Bravo Romeo Delta has a very heavy theme. It's a nuclear war simulator. It was my father that purchased it, and I watched him play it, and I tried playing it a little bit when I was in my young teens. I don't remember much of how the gameplay or the strategy worked, but I do remember you just launch nuclear strikes against the other country. I can't even remember if we played as the Americans or the Russians, but I do remember the screen saying we had 100 million people killed and our enemy had only like 50 million people killed. So yeah, it's a very intense theme, and there's a saying they don't make games like this anymore. I say it's an interesting game because in a nuclear war you'll use missile silos, submarines, planes, many things. And I remember the box art being chilling, having a guy wearing a radiation suit. It was an interesting game, I'll say that. Another game I wanted to like, because who didn't love The Simpsons back in the early 90s? But the game is known for being notoriously difficult. The platforming feels imprecise and very floaty, and it's hard to judge distances when you make jumps. There's a lot of trial by error, and something as simple as running out of money will mean you have to restart the entire game again. There's no password system. There's the infamous section of the second stage where you need to make a very hard jump over some cement, and if you land in the cement, you lose 2 hits, which is 1 life, and you can go through all your lives quickly. Many of the tasks you have to do in the game are not fun. In the first stage, discoloring or removing the purple objects isn't so bad because there's a variety of ways you can do it. But in the second stage, collecting hats is just boring. It's like a boring time-consuming collectathon. I couldn't get past the second stage. The music is good enough, and the Amiga version has some nice full-motion video scenes that look like from the Simpsons cartoon. They even found a way to make the skateboarding segments very frustrating and unresponsive. It's a shame because the game is presented nicely enough, but they made a game that's meant to appeal to kids as well as adults punishingly difficult. This game was released for the Amiga in 1993, late in the Amiga's lifespan, so that explains why its graphics look pretty good. Speaking of graphics, once again another Amiga game with fairly nice visuals but average gameplay. It rips off Street Fighter and bits of other fighting games. As far as special moves go, but the thing is, even on the default difficulty, you can beat CPU opponents just by getting them into the corner and spamming basic kick attacks. The fighting mechanics feel very slow. The character in this footage, Nick, is a laughably blatant rip-off of Ken. He even does the piece after he wins. He has moves very similar to the Shoryuken, Hurricane Kick, and Hadouken. And other characters look like they have moves from Fatal Fury or Samurai Showdown. Because there's a character named Ninja that will keep trying to cut you up with his katana. The controls are very clunky, but it does look good. Another terrible movie game, which is a shame because Total Recall is one of my favourite sci-fi movies. It plays like a run and gun platformer, and you do fetch quests, and the enemies keep respawning constantly. You have a limited number of bullets. The first stage is very boring, and finding the items is more annoying than fun because for whatever reason they're far away from each other, which isn't like in the movie. The second stage is the taxi chase scene from the movie, which is fairly simple. The third stage is like the first stage, you've just made it harder and the difficulty more cheap. The game just felt uninspired, especially with the way enemies keep respawning and the level designs are boring. It just felt like lazy level design. I'll take the Terminator 2 game for Amiga and the Batman game for the Amiga over this game any day. Another old game from the 80s that I got for dirt cheap from that same store I mentioned earlier where I purchased Ultima 4. With Satan, it's the same old story you've heard before with many Amiga games. Great graphics, but poor gameplay. It looked great for a game released in 1989, but the best way I could describe it is a poor man's Castlevania. The controls are clunky and not fun. I tried playing this game numerous times when I was 14 years old, so my memory's a bit hazy. I just remember I couldn't get very far in the game and the controls just frustrated me. No music in the background. From what I've read online, other people say it's another Amiga game to avoid, unless you just want to look at the graphics. A gem from Psygnosis. This time it's not a dark fantasy game and it In fact, it's got a light-hearted feel and even lets you select an easy difficulty level. The aim of the game is to save a minimum number of those little creatures, and the strategy involved because the lemmings have different abilities that you need to utilize when you guide them to safety. I got this game for free when I was 11 years old in 1994 because my friend at school owned an Amiga 500 and he was talking so much about how great this game is, and at first didn't sound like the type of game that I wanted to play, but he insisted that I played so much he gave me a copy for free because you could copy Amiga games easily. When I played the game I was hooked, and it was a game as an Amiga owner that me and him like to brag about to console gamers. I also owned a Sega Mega Drive at the time, but I like to brag about how games often looked and sounded better on the Amiga and were more creative. This game is well known and was brought to many other systems. If I remember correctly, it came to the Amiga first, and it has enjoyable music, and it's just a fun game with game design that's just so fun. Another game I feel guilty that I asked my father to buy. This game is known for being difficult, and the reason I asked my father to buy this game is because I thought it would be the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game, because I couldn't come along and check the box art. This TMNT game actually first came to the 8-bit consoles, and it's very difficult and it's just not fun, and as you'll see, you're just swarmed with enemies coming at you from awkward angles, and it's hard to avoid taking damage. And there's segments that try to add exploration like a world map, but the environments are dull, they are not colourful or lively like in the cartoon. When I first played this game, I thought it was very amateurish. I was shocked to learn it was developed by Konami. As far as arcade ports from US Gold go, this is one of the better ones. The original version was developed by Atari. It's actually part of the Asteroid series. You can move your spaceship in any direction, and you basically have to clear the stage of asteroids and alien spaceships. There's different difficulty levels, which is good. The music in the Amiga version sounds terrible, which is frustrating since the Amiga was known for being able to do great music. This was another US Gold arcade port that I picked up for only $3 Australian, so it wasn't a bad deal. The game was fun to play through a few times. The final 3 games on this list will be starter kit games that I got for free with my Amiga 500, and these games were more like tech demos because they looked great for their time but didn't offer much gameplay depth. This game, Crazy Cars, it looked great for a game released in 1987 because this was when most gamers were gaming on 8-bit consoles, and 8-bit consoles wouldn't have been able to do graphics anywhere near as good as this. To beat this game, you just need to make it to the end with each car. You don't even have to win the races. You can overtake the cars if you want, but as long as you get to the end of the stage before the timer, you just keep going, and you do this with a Mercedes, Porsche, Lamborghini and Ferrari. With the Porsche and the Lamborghini Ferrari, it's very easy to pull to the front and you don't have much difficulty beating the game. You'll see the cars jumping high in the air, and if you hit another car or slow down, the car behind you will come over the top of you. A nice tech demo, but that's it. The next starter kit game was Super Skid. It looked good for its time, but it doesn't have many courses, and I like the courses where you do jumps but I can't find the footage. It was good these tech demo games that came for free with the Amiga were trying to show you great looking games that played well from different genres. Gameplay was fun, a nice presentation, but not many courses and just not a lot of depth. This is the final starter pack game to mention and my favourite of the three. As the name suggests, it's putt-putt golf with some very colourful backgrounds, and there's so much variety of them. You can make the ball rebound off environmental objects. The game was so fun to play in multiplayer. Look at the backgrounds, it was amazing to look at the time. The fireworks, I mean. Me and my brother and my father, we played multiplayer together. It was such a fun game for multiplayer, and it was unpredictable because trying to navigate the ball to the hole is easier said than done. When the ball bounces off objects and trying to calculate the angles, it can make things be unpredictable. So basically you could be trailing by a few shots, but if someone else messes up badly, they make the ball bounce off other objects, or the ball gets stuck in a place that's awkward, you can catch up pretty quickly. Yes, you can get a hole-in-one, and when you do get a hole-in-one, there's sound effects. But to get a hole-in-one, you need to calculate the angles and try to make the ball rebound off numerous objects. It was such a fun game to play with your family, and it was the second Amiga game I played ever after Crazy Cars. The backgrounds are so colourful and lovely and made it even more pleasure to play. I found this game one of the most addictive tech demos ever. I was 7 years old, my brother was 5, and my father, he was in his 30s, and back in 1990 we would have our own tournaments sometimes on like a Friday night when we didn't have to wake up early to go to school the next morning. My father didn't have to go to work the next day, and we could play this game for hours and have so much fun, and we did this numerous times. There's a variety of background themes, as you can see. Halloween, there's Christmassy ones, tropical beach, city with fireworks, at home, and different periods in time, and some artistic ones that look like they're from old paintings. I think it's a Thanksgiving themed one, so yeah, this game can be played during multiple holiday time. I'll let the gameplay footage keep running in the background because there's some lovely backgrounds to see, but I'll finish off this video by saying I was so grateful to own an Amiga. Some people were not happy with my choices for my top 15 favourite Amiga games, but as I said, those were games that I owned so I could play them whenever I wanted. I wanted to add Turrican 2 and Secret of Monkey Island to my top 15 Amiga game list, but I had to go over to my cousin's house to play them, while the other games I mentioned in my top 15 list, because I owned them, I could play them at any time, and those games were there for me when I needed them. And I showed a bunch of Amiga ports of arcade games as well. So this video here is the rest of the Amiga games that I've played but have yet to mention. The Amiga brought so many happy memories for me because it was a computer for artistic games and creative games. When the Amiga was released, it was state of the art for visuals and for sound. Amiga was a 16-bit computer released 1 year before the Sega Mega Drive, and the Sega Mega Drive was more popular than the Super Nintendo in Australia. Some Mega Drive gamers still wonder what was the appeal of the Amiga, why was the Amiga so popular in Europe. It's because the Amiga had such a large color palette, it could do a lot more total colors than the Mega Drive. If I remember, the Amiga could do thousands of colors, whereas the Mega Drive could only do 64 colors, but the Mega Drive could do more parallax scrolling. If I remember correctly, the Mega Drive was more suited to doing games that were fast, like Sonic games and various sports games. Had advantages of the parallax scrolling. The Amiga had much better music, though. Music teachers used an Amiga for sound programs. A Christmas theme in the background, which is appropriate since it's near Christmas here. Anyways, I'll wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed the final part of my videos for Amiga games. Take care.